When I'm not holding back the urge to fight anyone who uses the term wanderlust. I like to answer questions that I get on YouTube, so let's get to it. Hey bro, I've been struggling with something and it affects my playing on every level and it bugs me so much that it could be an issue outside of guitar. Anyways, I will come up with a part of a song and a few lines of lyrics and I'm ecstatic and proud of myself. And I'll record the little bit or show a few close friends, and as things go on, I can't explain why, but I can't ever finish it into a whole song. I can't seem to be able to make my changes fit together, or the lyrics' coolness or radness are ruined by the things I come up with afterwards. Anything like this ever been something that you struggled with? How did you get over this? I have a bunch of ditties, but not one has ever been able to grow up and mature into a completely finished original song. 100% hear you on this. I think finishing is the absolute hardest part of being an artist, regardless of kind of like what you're doing. And it's something that I've struggled with a lot. I think that I have started and not completed at least 20 times more songs than I've actually finished, because it's just hard. Like, I think the way my writing works is like, if I'm inspired to do something, it better happen that night, otherwise it is going to be an absolute chore to kind of finish it. So I found that, like, if I'm in the zone, I kind of get the whole thing done at once. Otherwise it might take a lot longer, like I just said. But basically, I think, especially when it comes to music-wise, that's where having a working understanding of music theory has helped me the most, in being able to not get stuck musically. Like, I rarely ever get stuck in a song musically as far as, like, where to take, like, the chords to the next part of the song. That never happens to me anymore. It kind of used to, just because I was so limited with my understanding of how things connected, but kind of learning how keys work, what chords are in a key, parallel keys that are kind of like complementary to that has been a huge lifesaver for that. But as far as lyrics go, that's where I kind of have the most trouble. And I think I've actually referenced it before, but Prince, who was such a prolific writer in his time, kind of had this quote that a lot of times he would just take a song as far as it was willing to let him go, and if he couldn't go any farther, he'd just scrap it instead of just trying to agonize and finish it, because I'm kind of like you when it comes to like the coolness or the radness of your lyrics. It's like, it's painfully obvious the lyrics that kind of came and just like came from like an honest place, and the lyrics that you just kind of just jam in there to try to make it work. So, you know, there's no shame in not finishing a song, but definitely if it's becoming a hindrance, you can't finish anything, you just got to make yourself do it. And the more that you kind of just devote time to being like, okay, it's so easy to get distracted in today's day and age, so to really just shut everything out and be like, I'm going to finish the song one way or another. I've kind of made myself do that a few times, and it's actually worked out more often than not. So really just set the goal that you're just going to finish it. Don't even care about the actual quality of it at first, because you just got to get a couple finished songs under your belt to start with, and then you'll find that over time, the more and more you do that, the more confident you'll be that, you know, you can actually take something from the beginning to end without having to compromise the integrity of what you're trying to say. So really just power through, finish stuff. Don't worry about what anybody else says, even if it never sees the light of day. Just finish it and just have it done. And then I think you'll find that you'll kind of like bust through that wall and then just start breaking barriers, my man. So keep it up. Which do you think is more important to have? A good song, mixing it, or the playing itself? Can a good producer make a bad song good? Really great question. I think all of these definitely play a pivotal role. And also kind of the inverse, can a good producer make a good song bad, I think is another thing kind of worth mentioning. So, you know, when it comes to the actual song itself, I think that once you get to like a certain level of songwriting, it's hard to write bad songs. It's just like bad execution, I think. Because once you kind of like understand and have the ability to like write one good song, I feel like you can kind of like put that same thing into practice to make other good songs. Now, as far as like, you know, lyrical depth and like, you know, however you would evaluate what a good song is, I mean, that's definitely up for debate. But if the song itself is good, and then like you said, your playing is decent enough to kind of like get the idea across, I think those are the two most important things. Now, the mixing is something that is kind of hugely in demand right now, that a lot of people are interested in doing, because home studios are easier to come by than ever, and the technology is kind of leveling the playing field. But mixing is still kind of like a mysterious thing as far as like how to make things sound good. And in my experience, it just comes with just doing it over and over, kind of like anything else. But as far as can a good producer make a bad song good, I think it just depends on the role of the producer. If it's like more of like a musical producer, like a guy like Danger Mouse or something like that, then yeah, absolutely, you can kind of give him just like the bare bones of some crappy song, and he can find a way to make it interesting because he plays such a pivotal role in like the composition, the arrangement, and everything. Now, if it's more of like a hands-off producer who's just kind of like putting like a little bit of a sparkle or a professional sound on a bad song, I don't think that's really going to work out so well. Now, like I said, the opposite, the inverse of that, can a producer make a good song bad? Yes, and we have several references of this. And I think the one that comes to mind off the top of my head is my girl Fiona Apple. I know it was her third album, Extraordinary Machine, which she was in kind of like this like huge legal battle with her record company over how they were going to kind of approach it, which isn't really like an uncommon story. I'm sure there's like a ton of different examples of this. But she had all these tracks done, and they started leaking them. I think she was producing it with John Bryan, and they started leaking onto the internet. And I remember I listened to them, and like some of them were like fantastic. They're awesome. Like I love those songs. And then by the time all the legalese got settled and Extraordinary Machine came out, it was like such a different sound, and it was kind of like a subpar album, definitely by her standards. And those same songs that the demos were like absolutely fantastic of, and I think the one I'm thinking mostly about is a song called It's Not About Love, which was absolutely taken way down a couple pegs as far as the production goes. Even though it was polished, it sounded great, it was a totally different song, and having heard the first one was kind of ruined. So definitely like the direction is so important, and you can easily ruin a good song by trying to get too cute with it. So again, in my own experience, is like however that song is kind of like coming from in the first place, that's kind of like that rawness is usually a great indicator of where it's going to go. So, you know, if you're a songwriter and you kind of have ambitions to do that, forget about trying to make it polished and just kind of do what that song is telling you to do and just do it the best you can do it. Learn every blues song ever? That's insulting. I've spent years trying to learn where to fit in whole tone, harmonic minor, diminish, and other exotic scales into standard blues changes. Blues and jazz are closely related. Don't reduce the complexity of the blues down to the menial skill level demonstrated in this lesson. Rename it in just 8 minutes, blah, 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 blah. Bro, I am so sorry that it's taken you years and years to try to shoehorn the harmonic minor scale into a 12-bar blues progression. But don't take it out on the rest of us on the internet who are just trying to learn the standard way of the 12-bar blues in 8 minutes without your saltiness gumming it all up. Dinner with Jimi Hendrix or Jimmy Page? Another fantastic question. I think, again, I'm a Hendrix guy, first and foremost, but like I love Led Zeppelin too. Again, those are both of my top 5 guitar players of all time. But I do kind of think that dinner with Jimi Hendrix would be kind of like heroin and gummy bears. So I have a feeling that like Jimmy Page would probably have better food, plus you get to eat in like a castle or something. And also too, from a communication standpoint, I kind of feel like it would really be hard for me to like get on the communication level of Jimi Hendrix and to kind of put myself into that stratosphere, as much as I love the guy. And Jimmy Page, you know, has some incredible stories just from knowing John Bonham. In fact, if you haven't read the book that the roadie for Led Zeppelin wrote, I think it's called Stairway to Heaven, that is a must-read because there's some freaking crazy stories that Led Zeppelin got you back in the day. So I think Jimmy Page would have better stories, so I'm going with Jimmy Page. Hey Sean, I would like to buy a new acoustic guitar. What is your advice regarding cutaways versus full-bodied? Great videos. This is a very timely question because I actually just got a Cutaway. You know, I've always been rocking this Taylor GA3, which is a full-bodied guitar. So what that means is there isn't a cutaway. So the advantage is it kind of has a little more volume because there's more wood going on. The disadvantage is I can't really access the higher frets without doing some kind of hand gymnastics, right? So it really just depends on what your goals are for having a guitar. Again, this is just an awesome sounding, full-bodied guitar with no electronics. So this is like as earthy and as real as it gets. So if you just want something to kind of just jam around with, songwriting-wise, if you're not like a shredder, I would say go full-bodied because I think they just sound better. But all that being said, I just picked up this guy, this Martin Performer Series GPC4, I think is what it's called. I had a bunch of shows coming up that I needed something acoustic electric for, so I pulled the trigger and got this used. So as you can see, there's the Cutaway. It's got the Fishman Aura electronics. Fantastic sounding guitar. I have the action set up a lot differently, so it kind of just flies the neck. It's like light gauge strings. So acoustically, it doesn't really sound as good as the Taylor, but it's not really supposed to. The way it's set up, it sounds fantastic through like an amp and a PA system. So again, it just comes down to your goals. If you want to do a lot of performing and you think you're going to be up here, just killing it, definitely go for a Cutaway, because I do think, I would say for the majority of players, a Cutaway is probably something that you're going to want if you can just have one, because having a full-bodied guitar does limit what you're able to do. Again, I love the sound of that. I'm fortunate enough to be able to have two, but if you just had to pick one, you probably don't want to limit yourself unless you know for a fact you're never going up here, you're never venturing into the higher frets. But again, to a certain extent, it is all just kind of like what you plan on doing. So if you have aspirations for performing, I'm a fan of the Cutaways, especially this Martin one is pretty sweet. And maybe we'll see more of it in the future. What acoustic would you recommend in the $700 to $1,000 price range? So while we're on the topic of these two guitars, they are both kind of firmly within that. That's a Taylor GA3. They don't make those anymore. You can kind of find those used online sometimes for around $1,000. Same thing with this. This is like $1,000 used. And I think in that price range, you might want to start looking into some used gear, because you can get a very, what I consider, high-end guitar for $1,000 or less if you go the used market. And most of the time, when you're talking about like those guitars tend to be made of all solid wood, at least a solid top for sure. Those guitars are kind of worn in a little bit and probably actually sound better than their brand new counterparts. So I'm a big fan of the Martin Performer Series guitars if you have an acoustic electric ambition, because out of all, I'm not a huge fan of acoustic electrics in general, but the Fishman Aura pickup system is actually pretty good. And if not, definitely go for like a used Taylor 314 would be the current model of that GA3. And those are my two suggestions. Hey Sean, I love your videos, very entertaining, helpful. In your next QA, can you talk about how to use pedals specifically with a looper in a modeling amp? Thanks. So I get this question a lot, and you know, it is, a lot of people will start off with a modeling amp because they're cheaper than tube amps most of the time, and they give you so many more options because all the pedals are kind of modeled and built into it. But if you want to kind of start maybe honing your sound in a little bit, it's good to kind of get external pedals to use with them. And most of the time, how you're gonna have to do it is put those pedals in front of the modeling amp. So my best advice is, if you're looking at kind of to get the best sound out of those pedals, is to put the pedal in front of the amp into the cleanest signal, the cleanest tone, the cleanest amp that you have on the modeling amp, and therefore you're just kind of simulating a tube amp with the pedals. Now, where that comes in, a kind of a drawback is with a looper. What's happening is you're going to be looping a signal into like, so like let's say you loop a signal into like a clean sound in a modeling amp, and then you want to solo like a lead tone over that. Well, as soon as you change the modeling amp, it's also going to change the loop too. So that's kind of a bummer for that. Now sometimes there will be an option in some of the solid state modeling amps where you can kind of like insert the pedal, and there are different things that you can do. Like I have a Fender G-Deck 30 that has its own kind of like foot switch looper that you can use that kind of circumnavigates that problem. But you know, for better or worse, that's why generally I think pedals are kind of more used with kind of like non-modeling amps. It's almost kind of like one or the other, but that doesn't mean you can't get awesome sounds either way. So definitely, if you're looking into getting into that rabbit hole of standalone guitar pedals, Godspeed, man. It's a fantastic journey that'll eat up some time. It's kind of fun to just talk about, but be aware that you might not be able to get the sounds you're looking for with your modeling amp if you're going through the pedal too and maybe like looping it. Hi Sean, always enjoy your videos. Question, what are your thoughts on the statement, anyone can learn to play guitar, or any other instrument for that matter, all it takes is practice, practice, and more practice? Please answer from a musician's point of view rather than from a teacher's point of view. I'm of the opinion that you really have to be born with the ability and that it can't be taught. Sure, anyone can learn a little bit about music theory, but being able to really play an instrument is another story. In my humble opinion, you either have that talent or you don't. So I kind of feel like I can say at this point with authority that it is very little about talent when it comes to just becoming good or proficient at an instrument. When you really break it down, it's like learning an instrument is just like learning absolutely anything else. It's just kind of like a thing that comes with like a set of instructions, and once you understand those instructions and kind of put the work into getting your fingers to cooperate, then you'll be able to do it no matter what. Absolutely anybody can play guitar. Now the thing is, some people pick it up quicker than others. Some people are kind of born with like an innate ability to just, you know, manipulate the strings of guitar a little bit different. They might be born with like better pitch, and they kind of just have like an innate understanding of music, but that doesn't mean it can't be taught. So again, it kind of sounds like, you know, some rainbows and unicorns BS, like anybody can do it. But I mean, it really is true. Like, it's just sometimes it'll take some guy or girl longer to really get proficient at an instrument than others, but absolutely anybody can do it as long as you kind of approach it with, you know, a humble attitude, like this is going to take a little bit of time, but again, the light at the end of the tunnel is you're going to be able to do it. Now, if it comes down to like super high level playing, like if we're talking like, if you want to be like a shredder, like a Petrucci, Steve Vai, Satriani, Malmsteen, some stuff like that, I do believe you may have a point that there is a certain physical dexterity that maybe you can kind of get capped out at. But I think that's only at like the very, very upper, highest echelons of guitar playing that you run into that. Otherwise, just keep your head down to the grindstone, keep rocking it, and eventually you're gonna be glad you stuck with it, because absolutely anybody can do it. What do you think about the new Queens of the Stone Age single? After I heard it, I immediately went online and pre-ordered Villains. I think it's awesome. I love Josh Homme. I'm excited about really the new direction they're taking. I think I'm definitely ready for it not to be anything like Songs for the Deaf, because if you know anything about Mark Ronson, the guy who's producing it, that's not really his sound. So if you're kind of sitting here waiting for like the old Queens of the Stone Age to come back, I think you're probably going to be disappointed. I'm definitely not expecting that. I'm a huge fan of Queens of the Stone Age, so really anything those guys pump out, I'm going to be excited to hear. And the first single did not disappoint. I did see one of the comments, though, on the music video, and the comment was like, "This is a pretty long Eagles of Death Metal introduction. I'm waiting for the Queens of the Stone Age song to start." I thought that was pretty fantastic, but definitely we'll probably be talking about this album when it comes out. Question: I have heard you say before that you have seen U2 live. As a huge fan myself, have you or are you going to see the Joshua Tree tour? I wasn't going to go, but am now, due to the fact that they're playing the entire album from start to finish, and I think it will be insane. So I haven't talked a lot about U2 on this channel, but yeah, I've thought about this, and I'm a huge U2 fan. I actually probably didn't realize this until I got this question and was really starting to think about it, that I just love a lot of U2 songs, and I have no shame in admitting that, because it also got me thinking like what makes like a great band? Because like a lot of the stuff that they've done since like, you know, like the Beautiful Day era and beyond is kind of like, you know, poppy garbage-ish type stuff. But like when you look at like War, Joshua Tree, Octane Baby, like these are like awesome classic albums that will like live on forever, that have affected and influenced so many musicians, you know, for days to come. Again, it's so easy to look at it and kind of see like the pompous nature and like the attitude of some of the players involved. But, you know, for the most part, they seem pretty sincere about it. I know that like the experience they give to the fans is something that they're really concerned with and thoughtful about. When I went to go see them, gosh, it was probably like 12 years ago in Chicago. It was like I think it was the Vertigo tour. It was an absolutely awesome show. Those guys crush it. If you've never seen them before, I would urge you to see it, because it's definitely like a spectacle. They always sound great. Probably not going to go see them on this tour, just because, you know, it's expensive and it's like a hassle kind of doing the whole thing. And I've already seen them. There's a few bands I still would like to see that I haven't seen yet. But definitely, if you ever get a chance to see U2, go check them out, because they're amazing. So for listening homework this week, I'm going to throw you to a band I just discovered called Tulalah, or Tulalah. Again, another thing I don't know how to pronounce, nor I've really done the research on, other than I've listened to their albums and they're fantastic, and you need to hear them too. It's kind of like alternative folk with like a clean, cool, ambient electric guitar, acoustic guitar driven atmosphere. So definitely check them out. Any questions or comments you have, hit me up in the comment section, Twitter, Instagram, or the website, and I'll talk to y'all soon. Thanks a lot.